Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Dakota, the place where we take complex financial reports and make them make sense. And when I say make sense, I mean really make sense. Get ready, because today's filing is like watching a plane go through turbulence and then filing for bankruptcy protection all before takeoff. Alright, so today we're diving into a Form 8K filing from Spirit Aviation Holdings Inc. This report is essentially a company telling the world about a significant event that just happened, and for Spirit Aviation it's a big one. They've officially filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. This means they're restructuring their business to try and get back on solid ground. The report tells us that on August 29th, the company, along with its subsidiaries, officially filed for this bankruptcy. But the key date that triggered a lot of this was August 25th, which we'll get to. Now, Spirit Aviation Holdings is the parent company of Spirit Airlines, you know, the airline with the distinctive yellow planes that often gets compared to lower cost carriers. Their common stock is traded on the NYSE American Exchange under the ticker symbol FLY. So the big news right at the top is that Spirit Aviation Holdings and several of its subsidiaries, like Spirit Airlines and various Cayman Island entities, have filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. That's the kind of bankruptcy where a company can keep operating while it figures out how to pay its debts. They're calling it a voluntary petition for reorganization. This is super important. They're not shutting down. They'll be operating as a debtor in possession. This means the court will oversee their operations and they'll need court approval for major decisions, but the planes will keep flying for now. This section gets into some really crucial details about why this is happening and what problems they're facing. First up, there's an issue with leases for 36 aircraft that were scheduled for delivery between 2027 and 2028. Spirit Airlines had a deal with AerCap, a big aircraft leasing company, where AerCap would take over the delivery spots for these planes and lease them back to Spirit. Spirit had already paid some money on these planes, essentially pre-delivery payments. Here's where it gets messy. On August 25th, AerCap's affiliate, the lessor sent Spirit a notice claiming Spirit had failed to meet its obligations under these leases, and they were terminating the agreements. If these leases terminate before the planes are even delivered, Spirit has to pay a lease termination fee of $2.1 million for each plane. Now, Spirit says this is wrong. They don't believe they defaulted and they think the terminations are invalid. They're talking to AerCap, but there's no guarantee they'll reach an agreement if they don't. Spirit says they'll fight it in court, and if they lose, this could really hurt their financial health and their ability to operate. And then there's the domino effect of the bankruptcy filing itself. The very act of filing for Chapter 11 is considered an event of default. Under several of their major debts, they owe about $856 million on their senior secured notes. These are pretty much a company's core debt obligations. They also have $275 million in borrowings under their credit agreement. This is like their main credit line to keep things running day to day. Then there are these things called Enhanced Equipment Trust Certificates, or EDCs, which account for about $636 million. These are often used to finance aircraft purchases. And finally, they owe about $849 million on individual loans for specific aircraft. But here's the kicker. The bankruptcy filing automatically freezes action on these debts, thanks to what's called the automatic stay. So creditors can't just demand immediate payment. That's what bankruptcy protection is for. This section deals with something called retention awards. This is basically a way for the company to try and keep its key executives from jumping ship, especially during tough times, like giving people a bonus to stay. So on August 29th, they gave out these retention awards to their top managers. These are one-time cash payments. Let's look at the numbers. Here's the table of who got what. The president and CEO, David Davis, got a hefty $2,918,000. The CFO, Frederick S. Cromer, received $1,185,000. Thomas Camfield, the executive VP and general counsel, got $1,082,000. And John Benderatas, the executive VP and COO, received $1,132,000. But here's the catch. These folks have to pay the money back if they leave the company before a certain time, unless they're fired without cause or leave for good reason, which are defined terms in the agreements. There's also a special note about David Davis. His sign-on bonus installment that was being held in escrow was finally paid out to him, but it's also subject to repayment, just like his retention awards. And as part of getting these retention awards, the executives have given up their rights to participate in the company's 2025 short-term bonus programs. So essentially, they're getting this retention cash, but giving up other potential bonuses. This section is about their press release announcing the bankruptcy filing, and they're also mentioning that they'll use their investor relations website to share information going forward. This is basically their way of keeping investors informed. The press release confirms the Chapter 11 filing, and they're telling people to keep an eye on their website for updates. This part talks about other leases with AerCap, specifically 37 existing lease agreements that are from periods like 2013, 2019, and 2019 and 2019 and 21. Similar to the undelivered aircraft leases, AerCap has also sent notices asserting events of default on these existing planes. Spirit disagrees again and says they're in talks with AerCap. It's the same story, they'll fight it in court if they can't reach an agreement. And then there's a serious warning about trading their stock during the bankruptcy. They're saying buying their stock right now is highly speculative and risky. The price of the stock might not reflect what shareholders will actually get, if anything. And they pretty much expect shareholders to get nothing and for the equity to just be wiped out. This is standard stuff where they talk about future expectations and warn that actual results could be very different. There are a lot of risks mentioned here, including the bankruptcy process itself, the costs associated with restructuring their ability to keep operating their business, and the potential delisting of their stock from the NYSE American. And finally, the exhibit section lists the actual documents referenced, like the forms of the retention agreements and the press release altogether. What's the story here? Spirit Airlines, a company known for its low fares, is in deep financial trouble. They filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which means they're reorganizing their debts. This was triggered by a lot of factors, but the AerCap lease issues and the resulting defaults are a major immediate problem. They also have massive amounts of debt on their books around those senior notes credit agreements and aircraft lines. The company is trying to keep its operations running and has given substantial retention bonuses to its top executives, which is common, but also highlights the management's focus on keeping the experienced team in place during this crisis. The significant amounts paid to executives are meant to incentivize them to navigate this very difficult period. However, the warning about shareholders getting nothing is pretty stark. It suggests that the company's debt holders are likely to take priority in any restructuring, and that common stockholders might be entirely wiped out. This is a classic scenario in bankruptcy where equity holders are often the last in line and sometimes receive nothing if the company's assets aren't enough to cover its debts. Spirit's direction is uncertain. They're trying to survive through bankruptcy, which is a challenging path. Many airlines have gone through this, but not all emerged successfully. The dispute with AerCap over those aircraft leases is a critical wild card. If they lose that fight, it could significantly impact their future fleet and operations. The risks are immense. The bankruptcy process is costly and unpredictable. The company has to get court approval for many of its actions, and there's always the chance that the restructuring plan might not be approved or that operations could be significantly disrupted. In my opinion, Spirit Aviation is in a very precarious position. The bankruptcy filing itself is a strong signal of distress. The large debt load combined with the lease disputes paints a picture of a company struggling under significant financial and operational pressures. While the retention bonuses show a commitment to leadership survival, the ultimate recovery for shareholders looks very grim. A lot will depend on how the court approves their restructuring plan and whether they can iron out the problems with lessors like AerCap. Alright, that's our breakdown of Spirit Aviation Holdings Inc.'s latest filing. What's your take on these numbers and what they signal for the company's future? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this analysis was valuable, hitting that like button really helps, and subscribe for more deep dives. Don't forget to check out the Discord in the description. Thanks for watching. See you next time.